Hello, everybody, and welcome to On the Spot STEM. Today, we will be doing a sort of special topic on input and output formatting, specifically in Java for competitive programming contests. Now, a main goal when you're doing competitive programming contests is that they provide you with an input, you run your code, you perform a certain number of calculations, and then you output an answer. But what a lot of people get tripped up on is how to sort of format your input and outputting so that you can read in the information. So today we'll be covering how to do that. So let's pretend we had a sample problem where we have four numbers, okay? And those numbers are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And our goal is to figure out the sum of these four numbers and then print out that sum. We'll be looking at a couple of different methods to cover this. So the first one is the scanner. Now you've probably seen this many times, but it's time to figure out what a scanner actually is. So as you can see, you have to import it from the java.util.scanner place. And essentially what it does is, as the name suggests, it scans through text and it sort of processes it. And we have different things we can pass in as a parameter into scanner. Now, for our purposes, for right now, what we'll do is we'll pass in system.in. This is very common notation for reading in things from the system console. Now, you might be wondering what the system console is. So, if we run our program, and it builds and parses through the little amount of Java we have, this section here is the system console. So when we tell Java that we're going to be reading in from system.in, what we're telling it is we're going to be reading in from whatever we type in right here. And this helps us with debugging. So now we have a few different things that we can read. We can read in a string, S. We could ring in, say, a int, N. We can read in a bunch of different things because Scanner has a few built-in functions. Now, if we wanted to read in a string, we can use two different methods. We can do sc.next, or we can do sc.nextLine. Now, the difference is, let's suppose I had a string that says abba, cabda, abba. If I were to call string s equals sc.next, sc would read abba, cabda. But if I were to call sc.nextLine, I would get abba, cabda, space, abba. So as you can tell, all sc.next does is it just looks for the first string that we have here, and that becomes the value. sc.nextLine takes the whole line, and then that becomes the value. For an integer n, as the test case I showed above, let's say we wanted to read in an integer, we do sc.nextInt, because that will get us the next int. And it makes sense from here that if I wanted to read a double, we could do sc.nextDouble. And if I wanted to read in a long, we would do sc.nextLong. So as you can see, the scanner sort of is very convenient for us. Now we can use a different method, which is the buffered reader. And we call this by doing buffered reader br equals new buffered reader of new input stream reader of system.in. Now what we're just telling this is, we're just telling this guy to read from system.in. Now the way we get new lines is, it's not like scanner where we have a br.nextInt or we have a br.nextLong or anything like that. What we have to do is save all of these lines into something called a string tokenizer. So we do this by doing string tokenizer st equals new string tokenizer, and then we tell the buffer reader to read a new line. Now, as you can see, it gives us an unhandled exception. Because what a lot of times happens is that what the buffer readers tend to do is they say, what if you don't give us something? What if you don't give us something to read? Well, I'll be reading from nothing. So I need assurance that I won't be reading from nothing. So what we have to do is we have to throw something called IO exception. And then as you can see, the error disappears. What we're essentially saying is pretend that I'm never going to give you something wrong because I will not give you anything wrong. And then Java says, okay, I'll trust you for right now. Now the way we get ints, let's say there was an int in this next line, we use the function called integer.parseInt, and we parse through st.nextToken. This essentially gives us the next part of the string that we need to parse through. And this is how we gather the data. And let's say we wanted to read the next string. Well, say if you know that integer.parseInt parses through a string, then it should make sense that all we have to do is call st.nextToken, and then we get the next string. Now, I've shown you two different methods to read input. There's the buffered reader, and there's the scanner. Now, a lot of people wonder what's the difference between the two. Well, buffered readers are slightly faster than scanners, so a lot of people tend to use buffered readers. I, for one, tend to use scanners because I find them a lot easier to use, where I just have to say sc.nextInt and it'll give me the next integer, or I have to do next long and it'll give me the next long. So now that we've covered input, the second part of formatting is output. And there's a few different methods we can do for output, but the one that tends to be used is PrintWriter. And now this is going to look very long, but bear with me. Now, I just typed in a huge line of something that looks very confusing, but this is just how it's set up. We define a PrintWriter to be reading and outputting into this file called file.out. And this is necessary if we want to print out stuff. From here, all we have to do when we need to print is do pw.print hi. And let's say we wanted to make a new line, println, just like with system.out, is a valid function. And if you notice, system.out is another method of outputting, which is if you want to output into the system console, remember how there was system.in? Well, that's all system.out is doing. That's why when I print from system.out, I print into here. System.out.print will be used mainly for things like code forces where they don't have you write into a file. But if you're submitting onto USICO, you need this. You need to tell Java that you are going to be writing into this file. Now, finally, Java needs to know when to end the file. So you do this by defining pw.close. Once you close the PrintWriter, you should not access it ever again, because you're telling Java that is the end of this file. So now let's look at actually submitting something, such as the code that we had before, which is take a number. There are going to be n numbers, and we know that there are 4 numbers, as you can see, and find the sum of these first 4 numbers. Now, similar to how USICO will provide you most of their questions, they won't want you to print into the system console. They'll want you to print into a file. Now, this takes an extra step where you have to define a file f to equal a new file, and that file will be called something, let's say file.in. And then if this were USICO, you'd replace with f. However, since I'm not writing into a file, I want to just demonstrate how input and output works. We'll just be doing this into system console. And so now what do we do? Well, we definitely need to register a new integer. So let's have int n equal sc.nextInt. We'll do it first with scanner, and then we will do it with buffered reader. So for these purposes, we'll define int n as the next int. Let's have int sum equals 0. We'll want to get the next n numbers, and then just add them into our sum. So we'll add in whatever the next integer is. And then finally, since we're doing system console, we can just do system.out.println and then the sum. And as you can see, if our guess data is 1, 2, 3, 4, we print out 10, which is the answer we wanted. Let's try the same approach, except in buffered reader instead of scanner. So what we do is we get string tokenizer st equals new string tokenizer br.readline, and then we want to get the next int, which is int n equals st dot next token, and then we want to parse this for an integer, so we do integer dot parse int of the next token that we get, and then we do the same approach. We want to grab the first n numbers, and we want to take those numbers. Let's define a sum, as we did before, and then what we'll do is we'll add into this the next token. And finally, like always, let's print out the sum. And as you can see, if we enter in the same test data of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we print out 10 again. Now, let's say we were printing this out into a file. Instead of doing system.out, what we would do is we would define a PrintWriter. So since our PrintWriter would be as you can see, now that we've defined our PrintWriter, instead of system out.println, we don't print out to the console, we just print out to our print reader, and then we close it. And this is how you would submit to Usico, where you read from a file.in with your scanner, or with your buffered reader, you would read from a new file reader of the file. And then you print it out into the file.out. This is how you submit to Usico.